Here is a look at some of the fascinating error coins seen at the Heritage January Fun US Coins auction. In 1958, the Philadelphia Mint struck 50 million copper-nickel centavos for Cuba, even as it fed in bronze blanks into the Lincoln cent presses. For one moment, those streams crossed, and a Cuban centavo, just 16.76 millimeters and 2.5 grams, slipped in between the cent planchets. The smaller flan left "In God We Trust" drifting off of the edge, while the undertype remains clear, the top of the one by Lincoln's shoulder, fragments of Patria and Republica along the truncation. Graded as MS63 NGC, it was sold at auction for $4,880. In 1923, the peace dollar was still young, its relief high, and the message of post-war calm struck into heavy silver. Before production settled into a rhythm, the dies had to be tested, though. Those setup strikes were never meant to leave the mint, but somehow this piece did. A die adjustment strike is meant to test the machinery before going into full production, get the die spacing just right, and assess the quality of the die itself. Such coins were usually melted as they were unfit for circulation. This example is graded as AU58 by PCGS and sold at auction for $5,368. From 1938 to 1945, the San Francisco Mint was also striking florins for Australia. At the same time, it was issuing silver wartime Jefferson nickels. This unlikely error bridges that gap. Only two such errors are known, where a Jefferson nickel planchet made its way into the minting press for the Australian 2-shilling coin. Graded as MS62 by NGC, it remains brilliant and satiny, and at auction was able to raise $6,710. As the Susan B. Anthony dollar coin made its brief return in 1999, it was meant to act as a temporary stopgap until the Sacagawea dollar was ready to be released. Into that environment entered this coin. Struck once, normally, then it failed to eject the presses properly, got flipped around, and was then struck a second time, around 60% off center, while another blank planchet was also inside the press at the same time. Graded by PCGS as MS62, the coin was sold at auction for $7,320. In 1898, a barber die met the dies slightly off-center and did not let go. The struck coin clung to the obverse die, or the hammer die, riding upwards with each new blow. Planchets fed in beneath it, their reverses struck normally, while the trapped piece was forced higher and higher, its rim drawing up around the die's shaft into a thin metal cap. This is that cap. The obverse stretched and clipped, the mechanics of repeated impact frozen in silver. Graded as MS61 by PCGS, it raised no less than $8,235 at auction. In 1879, Carson City dollars were struck in modest numbers, their silver drawn from the Comstock lode and stored away in treasury vaults. Decades later, they would emerge in the GSA sales, frosty and brilliant, relics of a frontier mint long gone. This example carries an extra chapter though, lays across the obverse, striking through Liberty's nose and field, and remaining embedded in the surface. The rest is sharply struck, with the luster collectors expect of GSA coins. Today, graded as PCGS MS63, this saw a closing price at auction of $8,235. At the turn of the 20th century, the barber quarter was a workhorse of daily commerce, struck for pockets and tills, not for spectacle. Errors were meant to be culled and melted, especially in Philadelphia, where production discipline was the rule. Yet, one planchet slipped wide of its collar, struck 35% off-center. It preserves a bold crescent of empty metal besides the fully struck devices. Off-center barber quarters are rare to begin with, most only 5 or maybe 10% misaligned, and usually heavily worn. This stunning MS-61 survivor stands apart though, and at auction was sold for $9,150. After 1964, silver left the American quarter. Rising bullion prices forced a shift towards clad coinage, and by 1972, no silver Washington quarters were meant to exist. The Treasury had moved on, but one older coin did not. A 1964 silver quarter slipped back into the press and was struck again with a 1972 date, rotated slightly counterclockwise. The earlier date remains visible beneath the 1972 one, two eras sharing a single planchet. This MS-61 graded piece from NGC was sold at auction for $10,370. In 1855, New Orleans was coining gold at the very edge of the American frontier economy. Small dollars, thin and fragile, carried real value in a hard money economy. Errors in gold were not lightly tolerated either. Most were melted, yet this Type II dollar managed to escape. The first strike was ordinary. The second came nearly 95% off-center, leaving only a small crescent of dentals from the misaligned blow. It has been published as the only known example of its kind, and no evidence I'm aware of suggests otherwise. Graded as AU Details by NGC, it closed at auction for $12,200. In 1887, the Morgan dollar was the workhorse of American silver, struck by the millions as the nation wrestled with its bullion policies and politics alike. But at such scale, it's not unheard of for the machinery to occasionally falter. This Philadelphia dollar was struck nearly 30% off-center. The result is dramatic absence of America, of E pluribus unum, and the latter half of dollar are all simply missing. While nearly a full date manages to survive, only the tail of the 7 is obscured. Graded as AU Details by NGC, it was sold for the price of $18,300. Some errors are subtle, others stop the press cold. In this case, a 30mm steel screw slipped into the minting press of a Lincoln penny and was struck as a memorial cent. The obverse flattened its threads into Bertie of Liberty, and In God We Trust is only partially visible as well. Lincoln's profile is ghosted across industrial steel. The reverse managed to press 1 sen and part of the lower half of the memorial building into spiral metal threads. This is a frozen moment inside the minting room. Machinery meeting accident in a single violent strike. Graded as MS-64 Plus by PCGS, it raised a total of $20,740 at auction. Subscribe to WNN and feel free to watch a video about the top 10 most expensive errors sold at auction in 2025 next, right here. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.